যে আনিল প্রেমাদান কারণ কাচো
Draupadi Devi Dasi, please tell us about Gurudev.
Hare Krishna. Surely Gurudev was so sweet and so kind. He was really intense, but his intensity was sweetness. It was such kindness. The first time I ever met Srila Gurudev, I was really anxious to meet him, and actually, it happened to be the first time I ever came to the temple. I had been wanting to come, and finally I got here. And so Mother Krishna Bhamani had just given me some beads. I came to the temple, and the first thing Kunti asked me is, would I like to take a shower? And so I bathed, and I couldn't believe it. I came into the temple, and all these devotees were making garlands, and they looked so beautiful. They said I could wear a sari, and so I was so ecstatic. And then Mother Krishna Bhamani gave me a set of beads, and was helping me practice how to chant Hare Krishna. So then Drishtadyumna Maharaj came down and said that Srila Gurudev had arrived, and he hadn't given formal darshan to the rest of the devotees yet. He'd come in, and we'd all greeted him, but he hadn't given formal darshan yet. And but Drishtadyumna Maharaj came down and said that he would see me, and so that was really ecstatic. And Mother Krishna Bhamani came up with me, but besides her and I, the rest of the room was almost all brahmacharis and Srila Gurudev. And I had the japamala around my neck because I didn't have a bead bag. I'd just gotten my beads, and so I was wearing them like a garland. And Gurudev was so merciful and so kind. He said, so you are chanting Hare Krishna? He said that really nicely. And I said, yes, I'm just learning. And he said, so I see you have a japamala. And I said, yes. And he says, so let me see that. How does that work? And I guess mysteriously I didn't notice, but he must have taken his beads out of his bead bag. And I gave him my beads, and he acted like he was testing my beads to see if they worked, to see if they were strung properly or something. But he just took my beads, and he said, Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Jai Dvaita Gadadhar Srivastava Gaura Bhaktivinoda, and he started chanting my beads, and he was looking at them, and he was rolling them, and he was showing me how to roll the beads with my fingers, and he kept chanting and chanting and chanting, and he says, yes, these are, and he kept looking at the beads and examining them as if see if they were proper enough. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And then he took my beads and he put them inside of his bead bag. And he said, let me see your hands. Yes, you have small hands, yes. See? And he put the beads, he says, yes, this is better. This works better. He says, see, my beads are very big. They're very large. And I looked at his beads and they were really beautiful. And my beads were like not oiled or anything. They were very pale and fresh, and his were and I thought that the color and the shine came from him just chanting so much on them, that he polished them by his rigorous chanting. That's what I thought when I first saw his beads. And he said his beads were too large for this bag. This bag was small, and my beads were small, and my hand was small, so that my beads would fit in this bag better. And so that he just took the bead bag off his neck and handed it to me. And three of the brahmacharis in the room actually fell down. They like almost took a knee. They couldn't believe that this happened. And I didn't actually understand how extremely wonderful this was until I saw the brahmacharis' reaction. And then I realized that this was really, really, really special. I was too new to understand how wonderful it was. I thought it was very generous and very kind. But when the brahmacharis they couldn't believe that he did this. It was kind of like, I serve you, I serve you, I serve you, but I never got such great prasada, So I think Gurudev was always so kind to me because he knew I needed it. I was really emotional and I needed a father. And so he really, truly, deeply had the mood of father to me. And he was always so merciful and kind and informal with me. He was very informal with me. Things used to be very strict when I first joined about separation with men and women. But Srila Gurudev, even though he was a sannyasi, he would always let me put the garland around his neck. He would always bend his head down and let me put the garland around his neck instead of just offering it to him or giving it to a man to give to him. He would let me give to him. And I used to always be really attached to giving Gurudev special flowers. I never wanted to take out of the basket and offer to him. I would wander around the neighborhood and actually steal flowers from people. And he used to chastise me about stealing magnolias from people's houses. And one time, they were offering flowers to Gurudev, and I didn't have a chance to pick the roses from the rose garden, so I put some fragrance on one of the flowers that didn't have fragrance on it. And so Gurudev, for days afterwards, talked about this flower that I'd given him because I'd put fragrance on it, and how the material world is like a flower that doesn't have fragrance, that you have to add fragrance to. And he just, oh, that was so sweet and so ecstatic. And he was just so kind to me because I had this really kind of infantile, emotional, childlike, offering of flowers. So for some reason, because I was so attached to offering him flowers, he would always be so kind and pick up the little bouquet I made him, and he would smell it all during darshan. So I have dozens of pictures of Gurudev holding the bouquet, and that means so much to me. It just means so much to me. So when I was first a devotee, I didn't have any money, and I didn't realize people gave Gurudev presents for his Vyasa Puja, and I found out that I was supposed to give him a birthday present like the day before his Vyasa Puja, or 2 days, and so I was so upset about it. So I didn't have anything, so I drew a picture for him of Radha Krishna that I copied from the front of the Krishna book with felt markers. I gave it to him here in this darshan room. And the other devotees were very nice to me. They said it was very nice. But when I gave this to Gurudev, he said, "Oh, well," he chuckled a little bit. He says, "Jadharani had to start somewhere." So I could see that he didn't think it was very first class, but that he expected that I would improve. So that was very nice. But one of my favorite experiences with Gurudev wasn't personal just to me, it was for all the devotees, and this was on Janmashtami in 1981. Hare Krishna. Kalachandji was on the temporary altar because we hadn't built the new temple room yet. I mean, we were building the Vyasa for Kalachandji on the altar. And so Kalachandji was in this temporary altar for Janmashtami. We were all lamenting because, we didn't finish the Sringasana in time, and Kalachandji had to be on this plywood and black plastic curtains altar, and so we were all worried. Is he upset that we didn't give him a nice enough Janmashtami? But he was wearing all gardenias and roses, and when the curtains opened, the fragrance that came out of the curtains, and Kalachandji was so beautiful. All the devotees, and especially Sridhar, became completely ecstatic. And it was very wild because no one followed any etiquette. Everyone rushed the altar. I mean, Gurudev and all the brahmacharis and all the Matatis, we just like crowded together across the front of the altar, not taking, any priorities or any etiquette or anything, just smashed against the altar. And Gurudev was so ecstatic that he chanted kirtan from midnight when the curtains opened until Mangal Arati. He sang the most ecstatic. And about 2 a.m. was the first time that he ever did that really wonderful tune that he called his jazz kirtan. So the Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Hare. It was so ecstatic. He would say Hare, we'd repeat, and we would just go crazy and dancing like well. And Gurudev was playing the madrunga so intensely, I just thought his hands were going to split open. He was just hitting the drum so hard, and he was drenched in sweat so much that it was incredible. Somehow, in the middle of playing madrunga, he took off his kurta, And he just had like this, little scarf on, so he had no shirt on, and he just took it off because it was like dripping wet. He just took it off, while I was playing with it, and threw it. Like, it was so ecstatic, and it was just such ecstasy, and I could just see that. I always before felt Gurudev very humbly worshiping Prabhupada, and his main focus and concern was always Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Prabhupada. And that was always his focus. But this night, I saw him truly, truly ecstatically loving Krishna, and that was really beautiful to me. So I just have one little last story, and that's how Gurudev would always try to push the devotee to give extra service. He'd give you a service, then if he saw that you were willing to do that service and it wasn't really pushing you very much, he would add another and another on top of it. And just push you as far as he could go to get as much service out of you as possible. And so he did this wonderful thing. And he always reminded me of Srila Prabhupada. When I read books about Srila Prabhupada and Prabhupada's pastimes, I kept saying, Srila Krishna is acting just like this. My Guru is acting just like this. And the one thing that he did that was like that was he used to increase our attachment to him all the time. So he'd do things so we would compete with each other to get his affection or attention or approval. And so one thing he did was have a contest to see who could guess what the name of the Oklahoma farm would be. And so every night, this was a really ecstatic time because he was here for weeks and weeks. And we had darshan every night, and it was really great. And here in this room looked really different. It was very humble, very simple, but it was ecstatic. But now it's so good. It really looks like him. It's so classy and so nice. But back then it was very simple and very humble. And it was painted a bright orange, saffron color. And there was a red velvet vyasa, and there was no curtains. And the windows were open. And we would hang through the windows when we came home from Sankirtan. We'd just look through the windows, in the darshan. When the devotees would come from Sankirtan, they would all line up here because the whole rest of this room was full. But so every night he would say, "So, who's guessed?" And he had this box, and every day everyone would guess because whoever guessed what Gurudev had named the Oklahoma farm would get to go with Srila Gurudev to Mayapur for Lord Chaitanya's appearance day. So that was an ecstatic prize. So everyone was really working hard. And so every night he would say, "No, you're trying too hard. Don't get all these complicated slogans. I'm talking about a name for a farm in Oklahoma. I want to relate to the neighbors, and I want everybody to know." But he was explaining it like this every night, and I was so confused because every time he would give another clue, I knew that the guess that I guessed, I didn't guess, I knew. The first night I put the name, I wrote Harmony Farm, first night. And then every night he kept saying all the things that said to me that Harmony Farm was correct. And they kept acting like the contest was going on. And I said, well, I had to have won by now because I know. And so every day I guessed Harmony Hills, Harmony Home, Harmony Hollow, Harmony Krishna, Krishna Harmony, everything with harmony because I knew harmony was the word. So I kept on like this for weeks and weeks. It seemed interminable to me because I wanted to go to my home. So good. And I couldn't wait till the day he told me that I'd won. So one day, he told all the devotees that the next day he was going to tell everyone who had done it. And then, so he called me into his darshan room, and I was really ecstatic. And he said, "I'm very pleased with you because you know my mind. And we were always doing like this, you and I." He said, "I'm very happy, but you said, I think, no, yes, I was married." Okay, so he said, "So of course you know that a sannyas cannot travel with a woman. So of course you cannot come with me to Mayapur." And he said, "And besides, anyway, you guess things like Harmony Hills, Harmony Home, Harmony Hollow, but it's just plain Harmony Farm." And I was a little bit like, well, that's what I said the first day, but I didn't say anything. And so I thought, he's just trying. So he says, "So you're not coming with me to Mayapur, of course, because I'm a sannyas, I can't travel with a woman. But, so instead, I'm sending you to Fiji." And so that was very ecstatic, I was really happy to get to serve him in this way because he used to talk really enthusiastically about the fact that he really wanted to fulfill Srila Prabhupada's prediction that Fiji would be the first Krishna conscious country. And he had this fervor for it, just kind of like, it reminded me of Prabhupada having fervor for coming to the West. He had this fervor for really completely converting all of Fiji. And he really thought this was possible, and he took it as a special mission. So the fact that I was his first disciple he sent to Fiji was a big honor to me, and it softened the blow of not being able to go to Mayapur. So it was really exciting to get to do that. And the main thing is I was just happy that I wasn't crazy all these weeks, that I actually had known his mind, because that was important to me. Whenever I used to ask him questions, I would ask a question, but Gurudev would read my mind, and he would answer the question underneath the question. He never answered. I tried to sound erudite and fancy, and he used to always kind of smash people down when they tried to be very fancy, and he would always want people to be humble and simple and direct, and so he would always answer the real, humble, simple, direct question instead of the elaborately worded one. So he was very, very special and completely transcendental. And I'm going to miss hearing the sound of his voice vibrating off the wall in the room where he is. The way that he spoke went right to my heart. And I hope that I can feel that way when I listen to his tapes. I get a lot of inspiration when I listen to his tapes, but being in person with him, I couldn't, my mind wouldn't work. I couldn't question anything. I didn't want to question anything. Everything he said went right into my heart when I was in person. His vibration of, was so beautiful and
Yeah, so just being in this darshan room for me is very, very intense, because it brings back lots of memories of my spiritual master. Gurudev is so incredible, because even, he gave us countless darshans here, and I served him so many times here, even in the beginning days. I would do anything to be in that kitchen. I would do anything. I would scrub the pots, do anything just to be in the kitchen, just to be in his presence and have his personal darshan, and just to smell the smell that emanated from his transcendental body and his whole darshan. And Gurudev would oftentimes call us to sit when he was instructing other disciples. He was always instructing. He was always trying to bring us along in our spiritual life. And I remember so many pastimes with Gurudev. First getting the opportunity to meet him, I still have that picture. I have this framed, connected picture with Srila Gurudev and Prabhupada and Panchatattva, and when we met the devotees, actually they literally knocked on our front door in North Dallas. And we met the devotees so many times before in Boston when I was a hippie in California, but somehow or another, actually just before these devotees knocked on our door, my husband and I both went on trips, business trips, and we came back. We both met the devotees on these trips, and my husband came back with a record, and I came back with a Bhagavad Gita. It was like an amazing thing. And so I remember trying to read this Bhagavad Gita and thought, wow, I was doing so much nonsense in those days, and I couldn't get it at all. But then Krishna said the devotees literally knocking on our door to sell paintings in North Dallas, and that's how we established a relationship with the devotees here in Dallas. And this devotee was so funny because I had no interest in his oil paintings, but then he rolled out these Peshwa paintings of Krishna, and they were so beautiful. I was completely attracted. And we had a company at that time called International Expressions, and actually, my god sister Draupadi made this pen and ink painting of Krishna out of the Krishna book that we use for our logo for that company. I still have that picture, the large size of that picture to this day. But at any rate, we established a relationship with this devotee, and then one day he pulled up his wig and revealed that he was a Hare Krishna devotee, because we didn't know really. We just developed a friendship. So then we would stay up night after night talking philosophically, and he would tell us about Gurudev. And first time coming to this temple was Janmashtami. And then he arranged a meeting with Srila Gurudev, and I just somehow knew in my heart I had to wear something besides my regular clothes. And so I bought this long, kind of a maroon colored Indian print dress, and I got a shawl. And we went into Gurudev's room, which is now, changed. It was just simple, and he was there when we walked in, and the whole room was luminous. It was just glowing with peachy, transcendental glow, and it smelled so sweet, and it was just such an impactful experience. And when I looked at him, and the smile, that little nod of his head, and that wonderful smile, it just was all it just engulfed me, So it was love I felt. And he just began to speak, and when he began to speak, I just knew, even though I was just such a fallen condition, as I am today still, I just knew this was my eternal spiritual master. And shortly after that, he was cultivating us. We moved right into the community. We lived in the house where Maturanath and Leela live now. That was our first home. And I was just looking through all the pictures of Gurudev, and I remember he called me out one day to walk in the park with him. I have this picture. Sevananda Prabhu, Shravani, his husband, was reading, walking with Gurudev and reading. And he called me out, and said, walk with me, and you can hear. And we walked in the park. And it's so many amazing pastimes when I remember one time then we moved to Arjun's house, Vrindavan and Arjun, where they lived. We lived in that home. One day, Maturanath, I had a bandana around my head. I was vacuuming and cleaning my house, and Maturanath came to the front door and said, Srila Gurudev would like you to do this interview on TV with him, and it's in 20 minutes. And he said, because Drishta Prabhu was going to do the interview, but when Srila Gurudev heard that Drishta was going to do it, he said, Drishta? What do you mean Drishta? Nandini has to do this. Look at how he looks. Nandini has to do this program. And I was like totally shocked because, of course, Drishta was a senior Prabhupada disciple and a brilliant scholar. And I was just, excuse me, it wasn't Nandini, it was Nancy. I was not initiated at that time. And so I was like completely, shocked. And so he said, so you have to get clean, put on your business clothes, like you're going to interview, and get ready. And so I quickly put on a red, long, kind of a red business skirt and a white blouse and a black jacket. And we were in the car with Srila Gurudev, and I was in the back seat with Drishta. And he was on the way going to this TV interview. He was telling me, okay, these are the questions, and this is how you kind of should do this, And I was like completely like praying, oh my God, somehow or another, let me do this. And we walked into the, TV studio, and it was a live interview, it was live, and then there was people calling in, and Srila Gurudev was there, he gave me his bead bag. He put his bead bag in my hand. And then And then I remember, I was like, fidgeting and, I was kind of looking over what I was supposed to say, and Srila Gurudev was so cool in the shade. He looked at me, he said, Nandini, he says, are you nervous? And I said, yes. Well, he said, oh, don't worry, you don't have to be nervous. There's only going to be about 3 million people watching this show. And I just went, oh my God, Hare Krishna, he just, and then he gave me that sheepish little, that grin, and I have that video of me interviewing Srila Gurudev. And it was very, very, very sublime. And then I remember during the interview, he made a transcendental joke, because at that time I was managing the restaurant, and he was talking about the restaurant, and he looked at me and he said, and we have this, somehow, something like in the interview, and we have this wonderful restaurant in Dallas. He said, perhaps you've been there before. And I said, yes, I've been there. It's very wonderful. I was like, so clever, so, so amazing. And I remember in the old days when the restaurant was just beginning, there was, before the hallway was in the temple was anything like this, there was a window from the hallway. You remember that looked into the restaurant kitchen. And Gurudev, I remember that. And Gurudev engaged me in that service in the restaurant, and he would, walk by, and the window would be open. He'd see me and Sunanda rushing around and, getting everything together, because at that time we served a la carte. It wasn't, it wasn't a buffet. And Gurudev would, like poke his head in the window. He'd look at me and he'd just laugh. And he says, "You are finished, Nancy. You finished. This is it. You'll never be able to leave." And I was in ecstasy in the service that he gave me. And just so many pastimes. At one point, we had an offer to move to California, to the Bay Area, Southern Marin County, and I remember how heart-wrenching it was for Srila Gurudev. We'd taken initiation, and he was in total anxiety that we were going to leave, and that he might lose us to the material world. And he spent hours and hours talking with us, talking with Maturanath, consulting with everyone, like, should they go, and it was, I remember he walked down to the house. I was living in Arjuna's house, and, finally talked with us, and then, it was a long, everything with Srila Gurudev was just, so meditated upon. It was, it was so deep and so ever thoughtful, and he was always considering every single angle. And he came in to the door, and he said, "So, I've decided that, you have my blessings to go." And I just, I just burst out crying. I threw myself at his feet. And he gave us some instructions. So when we moved to California, I'll never forget that I wailed, I wept for like a month. I felt so, because I'd been completely under the shelter of my spiritual master, and I'd been totally absorbed in service here. I felt completely, I was so neophyte and so young. I felt, where's Krishna? I didn't have the strength. I felt totally alone. There, I was like in the middle of the material world, and we were involved in an investment, firm in Tiburon, and just across from Mill Valley. But somehow or other, I kept in touch with him, and he kept encouraging us, and I started doing Friday night programs there. We would do big prasadam cooking and invite people, and started cultivating people at Southern Marin, and we had an altar, of course, and Gurudev on an altar. And so merciful. He came to stay with us. He came to California to be with us, to stay in our home. And I remember the first time he said he was coming, I was just totally, like ecstatic to think that my spiritual master was coming. And I scrubbed every single wall from top to bottom, every floorboard, everything. And I just felt like, oh my God, this house is so pure. He's going to come here, And then I remember I got tuberose everywhere. I put tuberose, he sprayed from tuberose everywhere in his room where he was going to sleep, and all over. And he came so mercifully, stayed in our home. And we organized these incredible programs for him, really wonderful programs where, 20, 30 people would come and hear him. And people we've been cultivating that I was teaching how to offer food. And Kartikeya, we'd make him hot milk, and my husband would tuck him in bed. He would say, come in. One time he came and visited us in that home, and he brought his Radha Damodar deities. I have pictures of him. I said, at all tables was worshiping his deities right in my home. And sometimes he would come and he would bring all the, he was always giving his association, and he was always eager to take association from his God brothers. And, Srila Maharaj and different sannyasis would come to my home, and he would meet with them. I remember this time I was pregnant with Keshava Das, and I was quite pregnant, and they were taking, I was cooking for them, and they were all taking out in the backyard. And everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. The sink completely backed up, so I couldn't put anything down the sink. And the stove was having problems, and so I had a sink out in the garage, which was converted to a game room. And I was rushing around serving him. And another time in California, he told me he wanted homemade bread. He wanted khichdi. He told me everything he wanted, and he wanted homemade bread, and he wanted me to make him a special kind of a sandwich. And I didn't have any whole wheat flour. I had atta, and I tried to make whole wheat bread, and it completely blew. And everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. And so I said, well, I have this, this really nice organic bread. He said, so you're going to offer your spiritual master Karmi bread, Karmi grains? He said, And I said, it's really, organic and nice. And so he said, okay. He said, okay, well, this is what I want. I want Velveeta cheese, and I want you to make me a grilled cheese sandwich. And so I went, Velveeta cheese? I said, this is what I want. And so my husband went to the store and bought him a Velveeta, and I made him these, on this organic whole wheat bread, these, Velveeta cheese sandwiches. And he was sitting at our kitchen table with Keshava Das and Kartikeya and Gurudev was sitting there, and I was serving him. And he took one bite, and the cheese kind of stretched. A little bit was on his little lip, and then he just went, oh, wow, this is just how my mother used to make it. Just like that. My mother used to make just like this. And then one morning I was trying to make him khichdi. He was rocking in the chair. I still have that rocking chair. I nursed my kid in that chair. He sat in that rocking chair so many times. And he was chanting for the deities, and he wanted me to make khichdi. And I was in there for eternal time trying to cook these potatoes in the khichdi, and they were hard. They kept being hard. And so Gurudev kept saying, Nandini, what's happening? He kept saying like that. And, I had a push door, So I opened the door and poke out and say, sure, Gurudev, I don't know what to say. Potatoes are you cooking, Finally, he went, he just got out and put his bead bag down, and he came into my kitchen and put my apron on and started, started cooking at my stove. This was like so personal and so sweet. And I want to share one final thing in more recent times. We asked our spiritual master, we had asked Gurudev if it looked like it was a good plan for us to move to Puerto Rico. And so we asked Gurudev, should we do this? We want to know if this is a good plan for us, and we want your blessings if it is a good plan. And we spoke with him about it, and he said, I think this is a very good plan for you, and we should go. So during the time that Mother Keratita was leaving, I was here, and we were taking turns going to the hospital with her. And I feel very, very fortunate that Shri Gurudev displayed such amazing, loving pastimes. He showed us exactly what Krishna consciousness is all about. And it's about love. It's about Vaishnava relationships and about serving each other. And he showed us so completely in these pastimes with Keratita. And I feel I was trying to unpack my house, and I was alone here trying to put it all together. Although my son Jagram helped, it was intense for me. This was my home, my family, and so I took initiation from my spiritual master. But he was very merciful, and I was able to share those pastimes with him. And when we moved to Puerto Rico, I continued to email to Gurudev all the time. And he sent me this one email. I just needed complete confirmation, you know. And he sent me this one email, and he said, do you think that your spiritual master is so small-minded that to think that Dallas is the only place you can serve him? And it was so sweet. He said, you are going to do, encouraging me, good service we were going to be able to do there. And I was emailing him, telling him how I'm on the altar, and I'm worshiping, going to tithe most days a week. And, he emailed me back and said, this gives me such pleasure. And now this is what you've been waiting for. This is what I've been waiting for. You really dive in and experience the deep nectar of Krishna consciousness. He was just so encouraging. And when Keshava was accepted in Mayapur, he was just accepted in, the Gurukul in Mayapur. Gurudev wrote him the most wonderful letter and said, now you're going to Mayapur. He said, service to the Dham and service to the devotees is not different than serving Krishna. He said, be exemplary. You chant all your 16 rounds. Be an example for your guru. And he said, make sure you take bath as often as you can in the Ganges. And he said, and I will see you when I go, because I'm coming during March, and I'll be able to see you then. And it'll give me great pleasure. So as it was, Keshava, none of the children went because of this horrible incident with the World Trade Center. And I asked Gurudev again, because Maharaj, Dr. Maharaj was kind of encouraging. I wrote him again, should I send Keshava down? He wrote me back, no, I think that at this time it's proved better. In every way, he was so intimately involved in every aspect of his disciples' life, every aspect of his life. And he was promising me, because we were emailing back and forth, now I'm just finishing my schooling, and I'm going to come to Puerto Rico, and I'll be with you there. And I just found out that he was just appointed GBC of Puerto Rico. I just found this out from Jai Shri and who my husband told me. So, but this gives me great strength, actually. It gives me great impetus that he was coming there, because we were there, the Krishna Pandit was there. And so this gives me real strength now to go and not be a tourist in Krishna consciousness, but really dive in and serve my spiritual master in a very big way. Try to push forward that whole project. So anyway, Hare Krishna, so much I could say about my Gurudev. Hare Krishna.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah. Okay. Oh,
Yay. Oh, wow.
we could sit together. Well, do you want me to sit with you, Draupadi, or you want to?
This is the story when I was really baby devotee, and it's just it's a part of the story about the Big Bang. This is like the really important part, and I forgot about it. And I just want to add, because it kind of adds on to the end of that. Is it okay?
Go.
Okay. I forgot about this part. This is important. after Sri Gurudev gave me the bead bag, it was incredible. But somehow, chatting with his bead bags, and Nandini was talking about his fragrance. The bead bag smelled like him. And Krishna, when I was chatting with his bead bag, and it was silk, it was so first class, it was beautifully made, little tiny stitches, and it was kind of like looking at a picture of Krishna. Look at this bead bag. When you meditate on Krishna, when you chant on Krishna, it's looking at this bead bag. It was so enlivening that I was chanting and I was really hearing, and I was actually getting this taste so early. I was just like my first day at the temple, and I was going, wow, because I remember them saying, the name of God is not different than God, and so we'll chant His name. And so I think, it's really true, because I was feeling this like ecstasy, and my body was feeling like it was expanding. And I was just looking at his bead bag, and I was just not understanding. It was very mystical. I didn't understand it. It was complicated. I said, I don't understand this, but this is it. This is it. And I had told my boyfriend, if I don't come back in 5 days, I've been kidnapped, so come and get me. Because I was coming for a little visit, and I thought I was going to stay 1 day or 2 days. And I said, if I don't come back in 5 days, come and get me. And he came in 5 days to come get me. And Sri Gurudev, and so we had a darshan with Sri Gurudev. And my boyfriend was here, Sri Gurudev said, and I looked at him, and I just thought, I've been with him for 3 years, and he finally proposed to me. And then I just said, he didn't even ask good questions. And Gurudev just, it was so, it was just no question. There was no doubt. I didn't care if I ever got married or had a boyfriend for the rest of my life. I just thought, this is it. Gurudev was just, could fulfill any desire I had for any kind of nectar association, even though it was just completely platonic and completely my father. I never thought I needed anybody else. So this day that I was chanting Hare Krishna, the first day with this beads and this beautiful bead bag, it was so first class. I was chanting and I was hearing and I was so ecstatic. And then there was this great darshan in this room, and all the devotees I could see Gurudev, and I could feel this love in this whole room. And I found out that I didn't just have this great and wonderful, beautiful first class spiritual master, but I had this whole family. I had this family in this room of all these devotees that all loved him, and we were all related to each other. And many of them were Srila Prabhupada's disciples, and they loved Gurudev because he served Prabhupada so well. And a whole bunch of them were new devotees, because he had never given any initiation yet except for in India. And so nobody was initiated yet by him. And so we were all in love with him. And I just was so enlivened and so enthused. And so I was determined to chant 16 rounds, which is a little difficult your first day as a new devotee. And so I really was determined to finish chanting. And so after darshan, it was about maybe 9:30 at night, which around here is really late. And so I was really ecstatic, and I didn't know anything about etiquette, and I went around outside because I just wanted more association with Gurudev, and I wasn't finished seeing him yet. So I went around outside, and I was looking through his window. There was a stained glass window of Gopal Krishna with his arm around a little baby cow. And it was a nice stained glass window in his room. And I could just see the shadow of his head kind of passing by the Krishna. And it was so exciting. I was chanting. And I was really chanting and feeling nectar. And just seeing his little shadow going across Krishna's window. And chanting and chanting. And so all of a sudden, the window next to that window flew open. And a brahmachari shoved his head out the window. And he screamed at me, "You are so offensive. Tamal Krishna is a sannyasi, and he shouldn't have to hear a woman's voice after dark. How dare you stand there and walk around and chant outside of his window when he's trying to get ready to take rest?" Oh, it was so devastating to me, because all I wanted to do was do something nice for Gurudev and serve him some way. I didn't know how I could possibly do it, but I certainly didn't want to offend him, and I thought I'd done the worst thing in the world. And I felt like I wanted to beat my head against a brick wall or something. I was so upset. And so I ran home to the brahmachari in the ashram. I was just crying and crying. And all these inauspicious things happened, like these cats got in a fight in front of me, and I almost tripped over them, and this dog barked at me, and this bird flew right by my face. And so I thought, look, Krishna's showing me how offensive I am. Oh, I'm terrible. And I was just running home, and when I opened the front door, I fell on the ground in front of Mrs. Krishna, and I just cried and cried. I'm so terrible. I did the worst thing, and I couldn't even get out what I'd done yet because I was blubbering so much. And then very quickly, there was a knock on the door. And Mother Krishna Bhami opened the door, and I'm still blubbering on the floor. And there was a brahmachari, full dandavats on the ground, holding up Srila Gurudev's gardenia and rose necklace above his head and saying, Panchakalpa Trubhyascha Kripasindu Devacha Pitnam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. And I had no idea what he was saying because I'd never heard that before. But so he got up really slowly and he was looking at the ground and he was saying, Srila Gurudev really blasted me. he said, he told me to come here and just ask you how I could serve you and how I could make it up to you that I committed such an offense. And he asked me, please give you this garland, and he handed it out to me like this. And oh God, it was this huge garland that was like this long, and I put on, and I was just like, all this mix of emotions, you know, ecstasy and dashed and ecstasy again, and oh, what a roller coaster. And so then he said that Srila Tamal Krishna, Srila Goswami, they used to call him Srila Goswami. We call him Gurudev when he went to China. But before that, we used to call him Srila Goswami in the early days. And he said, Srila Goswami said that anyone who chants Hare Krishna as nicely as you do could please chant outside of his window every day. Anytime you want to chant outside his window, he invites you to please chant outside of his window. So when he sent me to Fiji, I took a photograph of that window with me, and every day I chant one round to the photograph of that window. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So I think someone told me that Krishna Shakti has that window, and I want to go worship it actually, because it's not there anymore. So today I went and actually, I'm going back to North Carolina today, and I took several pictures of that window. Oh, I have to tell you one extra thing. Because I've chanted outside of Gurudev's window so many times, you know, before Mangalarti and in between Mangalarti and Gurudev's, I have seen dozens and dozens and dozens of times birds wake up Srila Gurudev. He is not using an alarm clock. Birds come and they sing on his windowsill and wake him up. And so it's so exciting. And it's so wonderful. The birds come and they sing and then his light comes on. And I'm chanting outside of this happened so many times. It's so ecstatic. And so I really know Srila Gurudev is completely transcendental, eternal spiritual master. He is Guru Parampara. And I know that somewhere some of his disciples are so well trained, they will be Guru after him. His disciples will be Guru. And he actually said, you know, he wanted all of his disciples to be Guru. But I'm kind of ecstatic. I never actually considered before until Gurudev passed the concept of actually what will happen is that there will be these different gurus that were disciples of Prabhupada, and under each one of them will spread out these lines, you know, of other gurus, and Tamal Krishna will be the first one, you know, that will happen like that. But patient, everybody should be patient and just wait a while before you look to take initiation from anybody. Just rest. But it's very exciting to me to think that he will be eternally honored in the way that he deserves, like this. And so I'm just really grateful that he gave me that big nectar and let me chant. Actually, let me chant it right into his ears. How he's listening to me chanting. I can't believe it. So, can you chant this way?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to edit all this down.
Yeah, good.
You got that mirror back there?
Well, there's plates on the table that I should
I'll move
probably
it.
move.
Just like on the other side, yeah.
Want the mirror in the picture? You don't want me to zoom up?
Well, you can. I'm sitting in this darshan room where Srila Gurudev has very mercifully given us, you know, countless darshans and intimate instructions and personal time where we've served him. So many times we've served him when we were cooking, and after serving him, you know, sometimes he would call me in and I would sit on the floor. He'd have these little personal, you know, anecdotes. conversation and always something sweet and a little instructive. But sitting in this room is very emotional for me. I remember picking out all this furniture for Charlotte Gurday, the design of the couches and the fabric that I thought would be really nice. And I remember when I picked out the pillows to go with this, we set it up and he came in and he didn't like the pillows at all. So now they're in my home in Dallas, actually, all those pillows are there. And so he described to me kind of what he would like, and I remember going out and looking for exactly this fabric, this here, something like this. And the trim, he knew just what would look good. And when I found this fabric, I knew, I was so enthused because I knew Krishna sent me right to the right place to find this fabric, and I knew it was going to please him. So I was immediately feeling pleased. And I brought it back and showed it to him. And he said, yes, this is it. So we made these pillows up. And then he wanted a rug. So we had this rug custom designed for him according to what he would like and made for him. And then this mirror here, Srila Gurudev and to encourage my husband to be in business with Matsya Avatar, who was doing furniture in Italy. He's a Prabhupada disciple, and he's very, very wealthy and very, very successful. And my husband, Gurudev, was encouraging him, you should do some kind of business with him. Maybe you can import and represent his line of furniture or something here. So Kartikeya went to Italy. He went with Maturana to Europe and met Matsya and ended up following that instruction, going into business with Matsya in the U.S., representing his line. And one of the lines was these mirrors. And we wanted to give Gurudev with a mirror. And actually the deities every morning when they showed us the mirror, we gave the deities that mirror also. So Gurudev picked this mirror. This was the one he liked the best, which is in here. So there's just so many, many memories here. And one just quick kind of fun thing I want to share. In the very early days, Srila Gurudev invited my husband and I and Maturanath and Leela to go to New Vrindavan with him. So we flew on a plane with Gurudev to New Vrindavan. And on the way going, Srila Gurudev was in the window seat, and there's one seat beside him. And so he was, asking Maturanath to come, and he would give him a little personal darshan and instruction, and then asking Mother Leela to come, and, my husband and myself. And I was not initiated then. We were, Kartikeya and Nandini were Carlos and Nancy, and weren't initiated then. And Gurudev had given me this instruction to do like in New Vrindavan and bring bus tours to Dallas to Kalachandi Dham, because he said, after all, there's nothing to see in Dallas except the place where Kennedy was shot. So, we're much more exciting than that. Just see and bring bus tours of people here. And I was starting to work on that, but the project was just in its very infant, new stages. So Gurudev called me over to sit next to him, and he said, so Nancy, I've given you this instruction, and now I'm giving you another instruction. And I was just, so eager to hear, what next he wanted me to try to do, how to serve. And he said, so I don't want you to do these, busters. I want you to give up this idea, now, because, it's just too early, and, we're not quite ready for that now. And so I looked at him and I said, no, but Srila Gurudev, I can do this, I can do this service, and then he continued again to explain, no, and he gave his reasoning why, and told me again, so, just, I'm taking this service. And I felt like, my heart was breaking, and again I told him, I protested and said, no, Srila Gurudev, and then he just looked at me, and he picked up the airline pillow, and he started beating me on the head with the pillow, and said, Nandini, Nancy, no, I wasn't a Nancy, you have to surrender to the instructions of your spiritual master. And he just was hitting me on the head with the pillow. And I felt like flowers were falling on me. It was just so, so wonderful. So anyway, then and sharing the Vrindavan with him. He was just so sweet person. And there was an area in the palace where I was chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, and it was echoing. It was a part of the palace that echoed. So when you chanted, it reverberated back into your ears. It was just sublime. And all of a sudden, Srila Gurudev walked in. I would chant loud, and I was chanting loud because I was alone in there. Gurudev walked in, and he just looked at me. He stood for me, and he went, "Wow, such very nice chanting." I always sat in this one place in the temple room when I would go, right in that spot we talked about today, Draupadi, that spot where it's just a little nook, and you see Prabhupada in front of you and Gurudev right there. And it was such a special spot for me because when Srila Gurudev would chant japa in the temple room, he would walk around and he would come right by me, and I could hear that mantra, that pure chanting. It would just enter right into my ear. The whole temple room when Gurudev chanted, it was so incredible, it was so potent. But I always chose that spot because I was close to him and he would come by. He always let me take his feet. I would touch his feet all the time. And as a matter of fact, I wrote one offering. One of my Vyasapija offerings to Gurudev about that spot. How even though I hadn't been in it so often because I was ill during this time, it was always my spot. It was my favorite spot. So many pastimes. So many pastimes with Gurudev when we all went to Fiji with him. So many times.
You were talking about going to Fiji. I want to say, last night I was talking to Chaitanya. Last night I've been really wanting so much because I don't remember I don't remember showing him pictures of Krishna Kaliya, the painting. He asked me to do this painting because he said that the Fijians actually worship Kaliya, the native Fijians.
Right. They
And
say he's on that island that he left actually.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
Yeah,
In
and
the waters.
And so, Chaitanya told me it's ecstatic pastime. Okay, so Gurudev told me that I should paint this painting in front of the temple because the reason he sent me to Fiji is because there was a lot of racial strife between Indian. They had been indentured servants that came, and then the native Fijians. There was this big cultural clash, and the Fijians were cannibals, and the Indians were vegetarians, and the Fijians actually used to say, "Vegetarians taste best." It was very scary. And so Gurudev thought that if there was a painting of Krishna Kaliya on the outside of the temple, then the native Fijians wouldn't see this as just some Hindu thing. They would see this, the Kali Nag, they would see the snake, and they would understand that because they worship the snake. And so it was really ecstatic painting this painting because I really understood how Kali Nag was this wonderful devotee that was willing to take this really low birth as this poisonous snake that everybody hated, so that Krishna could kick him in the head. I mean, how humble, and so it was really nice. And so I was painting Kali Nag and thinking how nice about the snake. And so I always wondered whether Gurudev was pleased by this painting because he actually instructed me to paint this painting. The other paintings I painted for him, he didn't actually ask me exactly to paint this painting, but I just painted it and offered to him, and then, well, except for the temple room. But anyway, he instructed me to paint Krishna Kaliya, and so I didn't remember him responding in any way, or me showing him painting. I don't know. I always wondered whether Gurudev liked the painting, because the only thing I could ever remember all these years was he said, "Well, even Jadharani had to start somewhere." So I always thought that was what Gurudev thought about my painting, and so I asked Chaitanya, I'm very afraid. Just last night in this room, I asked him, I said, I'm very afraid to ask you this question because I'm so scared of what the answer would be. But what, did Gurudev ever say anything to you about the painting? Did he ever say whether he liked it or not? And He said, oh yes. He said, the first time I ever went to Fiji, of course, when you go to Lautoka, you look and you see this giant painting on the front of the temple. And he said, wow, Gurudev, this is really nice painting. They must have really nice artists here in Fiji, really good painters. And Srila Guru said, oh, no. He said, actually, there's no painting in Fiji. You know that? The only paintings in Fiji are in the temple, down in the prasad room and that in the front. Everybody does sculpture. There's like no painting. They batik their clothes, and there's no paintings anywhere. There's movie posters of Hindi movies, and that's all. And little posters that they have from India of demigods and Krishna. But that's only two-dimensional art in Fiji. And so this painting was kind of a big deal. It's very large. It's 15 feet by 8 feet, and I didn't know how to paint actually. The sun was beating on it, so I used sign painter's paint, which is made not to blend, so that the sun wouldn't fade it. But it doesn't blend, and so I had to struggle and force it to not look like paint by numbers. It was very, very difficult. I just had to push the paint and make it paint, and I didn't know how to paint at all. And I just knew how to draw, and so this was very difficult. But so Chaitanya last night he said, so there must be, oh, it's so nice painting. And Gurudev said, you know who painted this painting? And he says, no, Gurudev, who painted this painting? He says, Draupadi. You remember I sent Nakula and Draupadi? They were the first ones I sent her to Fiji, and he said, and Draupadi painted this painting. And he said, Haribo. And Gurudev said, it's a very nice painting, isn't it? Kali is very beautiful. Krishna Kaliya is very beautiful. And just look at Balaram. That's what he said, just look at Balaram. So I was really, really excited to hear that. And Chaitanya told me last night, the Fiji temple was burned down by these the racial strife between the Fijians and the Indian people. And they actually got vans and cars to block the fire station, and they poured gasoline and they threw matches, and they really, while the devotees were in there doing a morning program, and either Mangalati group, which were very early in the morning, and so the chief of all the chiefs, in Fiji, did you know about this? About 10 years ago, when all the big riots were happening. And the chief of all the chieftains in Fiji called all the chiefs together and said, dengue, remember? That's what Kali is called.
Oh, dengue.
The snake is called dengue. Dengue came to me in a dream last night and told me that this is his temple that you've burned. And you must make sure you find out who it is that did this terrible offense. And he said, if any one of you ever does anything to hurt this temple again, I will personally kill you and cut you into pieces. and so even these Fijians, they realize, so actually it's very nice, that they realize that this is that Dengue is a pure devotee of Krishna, that the Kali Nag is a pure devotee of Krishna, and so it's very nice that Krishna believes that. Jai Gurudev.
We have to pick up